How the UK is becoming a third world country. Hmm. Okay. See this.
London, the city of dreams and one of the wealthiest urban areas in the world. Its economy is worth roughly £508 billion, which equals $652 billion. If it were an
Crazy.
independent state, London would rank as the 22nd largest economy in the world,
Look at that. Nigeria on top. Start talking about.
precisely above Argentina and Sweden. However, London's prosperity and that of southeast England is atypical for the country. This small area makes up nearly half the UK's GDP.
Yeah, that's basically a different country right there. The city of London. It's so different from the rest of London, better than the rest of the UK, really.
While having about a third of its population. If one were to amputate London's output, it would reduce British living standards by 14%,
Yeah,
just enough to slip ahead of the US state of Mississippi.
crazy.
Yeah, the UK has seen better days. The last 10 years have been particularly tough. Real disposable income, which is income after taxes and benefits, has remained almost unchanged. The cost of goods and services has gone up. Compared to a decade ago, people can buy less with their income.
Oh, I understand that, but I'm gonna equate it to probably a little bit of COVID and a little bit of how the country's managed. You know, 'cause, I mean, can't really blame the people who make the laws for what happened in COVID. Of course, you can blame them for how they handled COVID, but you know, they didn't create COVID, so you know, but.
Meanwhile, productivity is low, one of the lowest of any major economy.
Yeah. Yeah, you got a massive dip there in COVID and then back up again when lockdown happened, and now it's stable again.
And housing has become nearly unaffordable, with the UK holding the record for the highest number of homeless people in the developed world.
Jesus Christ. That is crazy. That is fucking mad. Highest. Okay.
The cause for these issues is rooted in past political decisions. Britain has slumbered and stumbled its way through a number of setbacks. Now, the crisis has become endemic with no quick fix in sight. When you think about it, it's ironic. The UK was the first country to industrialize.
We're gonna talk about Brexit, man. One of the biggest mistakes I think this country's made is Brexit. Even you know, rest in peace. But you know, I'd say over a good chunk of people who voted Brexit are dead now, either to old age or COVID. So you know, it's something that needs to be changed, in my opinion.
Now, it stands to become the first to deindustrialize. Seen from a larger angle, Britain's economy is on a downward trajectory. Prices are rising too fast. Just recently, housing prices rose by more than £2,200 in a month.
Oh my god, let me never talk about house. Oh my god. It's so hard to find a place to rent that is a good price in London. Not even talking about buying a house. Well, I am not even there yet. Let's not talk about that. But just trying to find a place to rent, that is a fucking hassle. I'm glad I got family members who will let me stay and I pay them. But really, oof, it's a struggle. It's a real struggle. I don't know how people do it.
Fortunately,
and it's a whole bunch of this, you know. How do you say, dominoes? You know, they got the Russia-Ukraine war. You had COVID. You had now they're sending money over to Palestine. Over to Israel to fund fucking genocide. But you know, and now this country is just going to. And I know it's not even only UK, because America is going through the same thing as well, maybe on a bigger scale.
This wasn't widely reported in the media. Looking at things from all angles is what we do, and Ground News provides us with invaluable insights to do exactly that.
I like this.
That's why we reached out to them to sponsor this video. In fact, reading this on Ground News, I can see only 10 sources covered it, which goes to show how overlooked this subject is. What's more, less than 10% of the outlets were from government sources. One might suppose governments don't want to talk about complications at home. Now, our type of content is not really suitable for YouTube. The algorithm deems it too controversial, and so many of our videos go without monetization. That's why we rely on sponsors to keep producing these videos.
These are very
informational.
These are very informational. Like, someone lives in London. This is great for me. I don't understand.
And worked with Ground News for years, and they've stepped up every time we needed support. In fact, we have our own feed on Ground News. Here, you get breaking news on geopolitics and even blind spot stories that the media isn't covering. Our missions align, so I encourage you to check it out at ground.news/Caspian. I recommend subscribing to the Vantage plan. Our link gets you 40% off. Keep in mind that by subscribing, you are directly supporting our channel.
Help his channel. Oh yeah, he doesn't really need help. He's got a lot of views. But you know,
not long ago, Britain was considered one of the world's most prosperous nations and a prime destination for skilled professionals seeking to advance their careers. Today, not so much. The state is under incredible socio-economic strain, more so than people realize.
It's strange seeing all these
geopolitical shockwaves.
It's strange seeing all these monuments because I just every time I just go across it and it doesn't feel like anything special. But I mean, it looks really good from here. But you know, when you're on that bus or when you're in the car over this bridge, it just looks normal, really.
Economic
strain. I go past Big Ben every single day, and I just feel like it's nothing anymore. I guess I'll let you. I think I can see my work building over there somewhere. That's really cool.
More so than people realize. 3 back-to-back geopolitical shockwaves have left it with a colossal debt: Brexit, COVID, and the Ukraine war. The catalyst, however, dates to 2008, when the financial crisis introduced long-lasting effects. Like everyone else, Britain was deeply injured, but the way it handled the fallout set it apart from the rest of the developed world. After borrowing roughly £141 billion to bail out British banks, the government opted for austerity measures instead of investing in fiscal and social policies. There were no significant tax cuts or minimum wage increases. There was no inflation control, no housing assistance, no job creation programs. You get the point. For ordinary citizens, the consequences were...
How old was I in 2008? I wasn't too... I just didn't feel anything. I guess my mum got the brunt of this, but I didn't feel anything doing this. It was just, you know, chilling, playing football and that.
Household income dropped and then flatlined for the next 15 years. In economic terms, this is known as a lost decade. For added perspective, in 2007, the average British household was 8% less prosperous than those in Norway and just 6% behind those in the United States. In the years following, the deficit grew substantially. Today, British households sit 20% behind Norway and 16% behind the US in terms of real income. This drop in living standards is felt vividly among the middle class. Real household income is a fundamental driver of economic activity. It encourages consumer spending and improves living standards, all of which contribute to economic growth. In Britain, however, the government prioritized corporate interests above all else. But even here, in the corporate world, the gains were mostly short-term. the productivity rate was left on the back burner, and no significant investments were made in this domain. For context, increasing productivity is one of the most efficient ways to grow an economy. But, contrary to popular belief, improving productivity does not mean working harder. Instead, the point is to boost economic output without increasing the amount of work. So, when an agriculture-driven economy switches to manufacturing microchips, productivity increases because the tech industry is more profitable and has greater margins.
Wow. I never thought of it like that. That's very interesting. The more you know.
The workforce is getting more out of it for the same amount of labor. That's why Japan is turning farmland into factories. It adds to productivity and ultimately improves.
The problem with this is that you're gonna have to start relying on foreign exports, or being able to make sure that the other farms can support the increased demand, because it's always better to grow your own stuff, grow as much stuff as you can in your own country. Really, that's me, because you always get transport problems. But yeah, it's interesting to see how the farmers feel about this. They probably don't feel good about this, but technology. It's the age of time. It's the age of technological advancements. So it's a shame, but it's just how it is, I guess.
Improves the economy. In the UK,
yeah, it's a lot of exports. We're a big import. Yeah. Yeah, of course. It's we have to, and Japan has to as well, because it's a small island. Well, not smallish relative to okay, not a small island, but it's an island. So there's only so much you can fucking do in the place until you have to import. You made the same mistake.
Productivity output per capita debilitated after the 2008 crisis due to a lack of investment. This chart by the London School of Economics puts things into perspective. Before the crisis, productivity was growing at nearly 2% annually. After the crisis, however, it weakened substantially, changing a trend that had been...
Wow, so we would have been up here. That's crazy.
...in motion since the 1980s. The British workforce now...
Yeah, you're right, yeah. Of course. Which increases spending power, which also boosts the economy. It's like a whole circle that will benefit, that will just keep benefiting the country, but it's just not that at the moment.
Now has the second lowest productivity rate among the G7 economies, whereas before the 2008 crisis it was second only to the US. The simultaneous effects of sluggish real household income and low productivity explain a lot about the performance of the British economy. It is essentially fighting for its life. Britain's lost decade happened so casually, so indifferently, that none of its political parties acknowledged it, let alone...
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, I saw that. It was... Oh god, I mean, I guess and we just have to deal with that the best we can, really. It's a real shame.
Addressed it. There was no political discourse
on
this subject.
America also had their financial bubble as well. I don't know if you call it a recession then, maybe. I think so. I think it was a recession. Or is it the housing loans bonds? I think was a recession. Yeah, that's what I thought. You're right. Yeah, they don't want to approach it, man. It's just
that was affecting millions of households. But it was a crisis nonetheless, and so the discourse expressed itself in the form of Brexit. However, the
Again,
uncertainty over
one of the
Brexit
one of the biggest mistakes of the UK
made a
in a
bad
while.
situation even worse.
Yeah.
It had a particularly sharp effect on direct foreign investment. According to the Bank of England, Brexit reduced investment by 25%, measured from 2016 to 2021. What's more,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
soon after Brexit, the onset of COVID exacerbated the economic crisis that was brewing underneath. The government stepped in and borrowed an additional £280 billion in its response to the coronavirus.
Oof.
This was deemed necessary
All
to
that
get the
PPE
nation
equipment was fucking wasted. Oh my god, Boris did a shit job.
through the pandemic. But here's the thing, most of the COVID bailout was borrowed when interest rates were at historic lows, sitting around 0.1%. At the time, repayments were expected to be relatively manageable, and this might have been true were it not for the final nail in the coffin, the Ukraine war. The minute the Russians began their full-scale assault, access to Russian oil and gas was halted by sanctions and trade restrictions. At the same time, an energy crisis started brewing, and the cost of living jumped across Europe.
Yeah,
The crisis
energy
hit close
crisis.
to
It's
home.
because Russia exports a lot of fucking oil, and when you have to do, trade restrictions and trade bans, it's gonna fucking increase the prices of oil. And the problem is we don't fucking make our own power enough to power the country. And the stuff that we do have, some of it is fucking privately owned. It's just expensive as fuck. It's just silly, really.
British households were projected
Yeah, but
to pay
people.
3 times.
Yeah, Ireland. Yeah, but people are always against nuclear. Some people are just always against nuclear because of what happened in the past. But clean energy. That's it. Clean, powerful energy. Oh god.
The previous price just to heat their homes during the winter. Much of the public was anxious, so the British government...
I remember. Yeah. I remember during this time. What was it? Was it the Good Morning Show? They were doing a spin the wheel thing to win prizes, and one of the prize was we will pay your energy bills for this winter. That's how bad it got. It got back to the point that was used as a fucking prize on a morning show, and that felt so dystopian. Really, it's crazy.
intervened again. This time, it was one of Europe's most generous in financial support. Between 60 billion and 100 billion pounds in additional spending went straight into Britain's debt. The damage to households was mild, but the bailout gave the UK its biggest increase in debt as a share of its GDP. The synthesized pandemic crisis and energy crisis pushed inflation rates to new highs. In response, central banks ramped up the interest rate. For ordinary citizens,
that was a horrible
this
time.
meant that mortgage payments went
It's still a
up
bit high as
overnight
well.
by hundreds of pounds. Meanwhile, for the government, the high interest rate added additional billions to the national debt.
The only thing that was good in for those interest rates was my savings account interest rate went very high in relatively to what it was before. So I was earning a bit more money in my savings account, but apart from that, everything else was shit.
While before, debt repayments were believed to be relatively manageable, after the energy crisis, debt became increasingly expensive to pay off. Servicing debt jumped from £40 billion per year to about £100 billion per year.
Okay.
That is a staggering £60 billion increase in spending, which is nearly the entire British defense budget. So, yeah, although admirably, Britain's support to Ukraine essentially broke its economy. Britain's debt interest bill is now the country's second largest item of spending. The surge in debt has reduced available funds by tens of billions of pounds, limiting spending on other items. Nearly all the country's public services are affected by it, which then depreciates the quality public services can provide.
Yes, including NHS. Oh God.
At its core, economics is about more than markets and money alone. It is about understanding the choices people make and how demographics drive those decisions. Economics is essentially the study of people, not just numbers. After the COVID lockdowns subsided and life returned to normal, every advanced economy witnessed a surge in the workforce.
Yeah.
People found jobs and moved on with their lives. This chart shows the
Including me.
change in economic activity among the G7 nations between 2019 and 2023.
Oh, wait a minute. We went
Britain
down.
stands out. Its workforce never recovered.
What? I recovered.
It just
But
stayed low. A smaller workforce has all sorts of ripple effects. It means less taxes to pay for services like healthcare and greater
problem
expenditures on
is, they said less workforce. There's no fucking jobs. These jobs either pay shit or don't fucking accept you.
social benefits. It also means people have less money to spend, which hurts businesses and affects the number of jobs available in an economy. So the consequences go full circle. But Britain's workforce problem goes much deeper than the missing 1%. Officially, unemployment in Britain is low by historical standards, sitting at 4.4%, which amounts to 1.5 million people. But reality paints a different picture. Britain's workforce is missing a staggering 11 million people. The government doesn't consider it unemployment though, calling it economically inactive instead. The reasoning is that this group, amounting to 9.4 million people, is technically not looking for work or is available to start a job. The Office for National Statistics explains the motives. About 2.1 million, aged between 16 and 24, are students, and
Yeah, I could understand that.
Economically inactive.
Yeah.
About 3.5 million of those over 50 years
Also
old
retired,
are out of the workforce
caring and
due
sick.
to
Yeah,
sickness
I understand.
and
So
early
those age
retirement.
ranges I understand. But what
Meanwhile,
about the
at least 1 million people
in between?
aged between
Yeah.
25 and 49 years do not work because of
So you got 1 million sick, 200k students, which I respect. This is the problem here. Too many people on universal credit.
caring
In this age range.
responsibilities. A workforce missing 11 million people is no small matter, but businesses need to keep running regardless. This puts tremendous pressure on the government, and one way to offset the difference is by opening the borders. So British lawmakers did just that.
I mean, you know what would have saved money?
Is by
Not spending this much fucking money on just making the clock gold and blue. How much do you actually spend on that? Find out. Big Ben renovation. What's 89 million. Fucking hell. Fucking waste of money.
opening the borders. So British
Sure, it
lawmakers
looks good,
did
but
just
still,
that.
my money could have used
More people
somewhere else.
from outside the UK immigrated to the country to work, with South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa standing out. These migrant workers fill the gaps left by a reduced workforce.
Yeah.
But
we need them.
simultaneously,
We need
the
them.
rapid and large-scale influx of immigrants has raised social tensions within the nation.
It's so
People feel
stupid. You feel threatened. You say, oh, they're gonna steal your job. You want to work for £10 an hour working 50 hours a week, just doing a janitor's work? No, because if you did, you would have got a job already. But no, someone who speaks no word of English will come in this country and get a job because they will do whatever it is to earn money for their family. And then you complain about you don't get a job. You have one GCSE, you barely have any teeth, and then you start talking about those people just piss me off.
Threatened by the changing ethnic demographics, and some lawmakers exploit such
Oh,
moves
these
to score
fuckers,
political gold.
man. Oh, this guy. He's a fucking he's a cunt, and he's a, pardon my French, he's also a fucking coward as well.
In early August 2024, anti-immigration protests and riots rocked Britain, affecting over 20 towns. While the riots have peaked, addressing the origins will take much longer to fix. In its entirety, Britain's economic chronicle, marked by a continuous decline, illustrates how one crisis triggers another and yet another, and ultimately leads to a chain of events from which there is no immediate relief.
Like
This
I said, dominance
is the bed
fall.
that was made, and now people must sleep in it. On the plus side, every nation goes through ups and downs, and the UK is no exception. London is still one of the wealthiest and most innovative cities on the planet.
Let's reiterate: City of London, not London. City of London. It's the most wealthiest part.
Eventually,
those are two different
things
places.
will get better, but until then, Britain will function like a third world economy attached to London. I've been your host Shivan from Caspian Report. If you approve of what we do, please leave a comment, hit the like button, and mayhaps share the video. And
This is a great video. Really enjoyed it. Have a look. I saw this on my on my feed, and I thought, yeah, let me watch it. Yeah, great video.